The city never slept, not truly. Even in the quietest hours before dawn, it hummed with the restless energy of people chasing dreams or simply surviving them. Among the shadows and streetlights, a soft figure moved, an older woman named Elsie. Her gray scarf flapped lightly in the breeze as she carried a small bag of sandwiches, her nightly offering to those forgotten by the world. Elsie wasn't rich. She lived in a small, worn-out apartment above a laundromat, the walls smelling faintly of detergent and steam. Her pension barely covered her expenses. But what she lacked in wealth, she overflowed with kindness, the quiet kind that didn't need an audience. Every night after dinner, she made sandwiches with care, wrapped them neatly, and walked through the dim streets, offering them to anyone in need. "Here, love," she would say, her voice soft and warm. "You must be hungry." Some thanked her. Some didn't. But Elsie never minded. She believed that kindness wasn't a transaction, it was a whisper from the heart, one that didn't demand to be heard to be felt. One cold night, when winter's breath was sharp enough to bite, Elsie found a young man curled up behind a bakery. He couldn't have been older than 20. His face was thin, his clothes ragged. When she approached, he flinched, as if the world had only ever offered him cruelty. "It's all right," she said gently, kneeling a few feet away. "I won't hurt you." He stared, wary. "What do you want?" Elsie smiled sadly. "To give you this." She extended a sandwich and a bottle of water. He hesitated, but hunger outweighed pride. He took them silently, devouring the sandwich in moments. Elsie sat beside him, watching the streetlight flicker. "What's your name, dear?" "Liam," he mumbled between bites. "That's a strong name," she said. "You remind me of my grandson." Same tired eyes. He didn't reply, but his shoulders relaxed a little. "Do you have somewhere to stay?" she asked after a while. He shook his head. "Nowhere." She sighed. "There's a shelter 2 blocks over. I can take you there if you'd like." He glanced up at her, as if trying to find the trick. "Why?" Elsie chuckled softly. "Because it's cold, and no one should sleep hungry or frozen. That's reason enough." For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he nodded, and she stood, offering her hand. That night, Elsie walked with Liam through the biting wind, their steps slow but sure. When they reached the shelter, she handed him a blanket and told him she'd be back tomorrow with some warm soup. He looked at her with something between confusion and gratitude, feelings he hadn't known how to express for years. The next evening, true to her word, Elsie returned. And the next. And the next after that. Each time, she brought something, food, gloves, or simply her company. Slowly, Liam began to open up. He had left home after his father died, unable to live under the same roof with a mother lost to grief and alcohol. Jobs were scarce, and soon he found himself sleeping in alleys, invisible to the world. Elsie listened, her heart aching. "You've carried more than your share of pain," she said one evening. "But pain isn't all there is. Sometimes, kindness finds us when we've stopped looking." He smiled faintly. "Like you?" "Maybe," she said. "Or maybe like you, one day." Liam frowned. "Me?" "Of course," she said. "Kind hearts don't disappear just because life has been cruel. They whisper. They wait. And one day, when the world least expects it, they speak again." Over the weeks, Liam began volunteering at the shelter, cleaning, sorting donations, helping new arrivals. It wasn't much, but it gave him purpose. And each night, when Elsie stopped by, they would share tea and laughter, their bond deepening. Then, one evening, Elsie didn't come. Liam waited, watching the door until midnight. He asked the shelter manager, but no one knew her last name or where she lived. The next night, still nothing. A week passed, and worry grew heavy in his chest. Finally, he decided to search. He retraced the streets they used to walk, asking shopkeepers and passers-by if they knew an older woman with a gray scarf. Most shook their heads, until an old man outside the laundromat said, "You mean Elsie? Haven't seen her in days. Heard she wasn't well." The man pointed upstairs. "She lives right above." Liam climbed the creaking steps, heart pounding. He knocked softly. No answer. He knocked again. After a moment, a faint voice called out, "Who is it?" "It's Liam," he said. "From the shelter." There was a pause, then the sound of locks turning. The door opened just enough for him to see her pale face. "My goodness," she said weakly, smiling despite her exhaustion. "You found me." "You weren't at the shelter," he said, his voice trembling. "I was worried." Elsie coughed lightly. "Oh, it's just this cold. Nothing serious." But Liam could see the truth in her eyes. The illness had worn her down. The small apartment was tidy but dim, and on the table sat an unfinished loaf of bread, a pot of soup gone cold. "Let me help," he said, stepping inside without waiting for permission. Over the next few days, Liam stayed by her side. He cooked, cleaned, and made sure she ate. Sometimes they talked, sometimes they sat in silence, but in that quiet, something profound grew, a bond that neither age nor circumstance could define. Elsie often told him stories of her late husband, a gentleman who used to say, "Kindness doesn't need to shout. It just needs to reach." "Do you miss him?" Liam asked one afternoon. "Every day," she said softly. "But when I see kindness in others, it feels like a piece of him still lives on." One snowy morning, Elsie handed Liam a small envelope. Inside was a note written in her delicate handwriting. "For when I'm not around," it read. Liam looked up, confused. "Don't talk like that." She smiled faintly. "Promise me you'll open it when the time feels right." He nodded, though the thought filled him with dread. A few weeks later, she passed quietly in her sleep. The landlord found her and called the shelter, knowing she often spoke of a boy named Liam. When Liam arrived, the world felt colder than it ever had. He sat beside her bed, holding the gray scarf she always wore, tears falling silently. After the funeral, small, attended mostly by those she had helped, he finally opened the envelope. The letter read, "My dear Liam. If you're reading this, it means my journey has ended. But don't let sorrow take root where kindness should grow. You once asked me why I help strangers. The truth is, I was never helping strangers. I was helping pieces of myself, the lonely, the lost, the forgotten. You have a kind heart, Liam. You might not hear it yet, but it whispers just like mine once did. Listen to it. Feed it. Let it guide you. And when you see someone shivering in the cold or lost in despair, don't walk away. Offer them your warmth, as someone once offered you hers. That is how kindness lives on, not in grand gestures, but in the quiet echoes of the heart. With love. Elsie." Liam folded the letter, pressing it to his chest. For the first time in years, he wept not from pain, but from gratitude. In the days that followed, he returned to the shelter, not as someone in need, but as someone ready to give. He took over Elsie's nightly walks, carrying sandwiches through the cold streets. He spoke softly to those he met, just as she had, never asking for thanks. "Here, love," he would say, handing out food. "You must be hungry." Sometimes, people asked who he was. He would smile and reply, "Just someone who was helped once." Years passed. The city changed, buildings rose, old ones fell, faces came and went. But every night, no matter the weather, a figure walked the streets with quiet purpose. Word spread about the man with the gray scarf, though few knew his story. One rainy evening, as Liam offered a meal to a teenage girl huddled under a bridge, she looked up and asked, "Why do you do this?" He paused, the rain dripping from his hair. "Because someone once did it for me," he said. She hesitated, then whispered, "Why?" Liam smiled, the same gentle smile Elsie had once given him. "Because kindness doesn't end with one person. It travels. It whispers from one heart to another." That night, as he walked home through the glistening streets, he felt something warm despite the chill, the echo of a soft voice in his memory. "You remind me of my grandson," she had once said. He chuckled quietly to himself. "Guess I finally became him, didn't I?" Over time, Liam helped turn the small shelter into a thriving community center. They offered food, education, and a safe place for anyone lost to life's storms. Above the entrance, painted in soft white letters, were the words, "The whisper of a kind heart." Every person who entered asked about the phrase, and Liam would simply say, "It's a reminder that kindness, even when it's quiet, can change everything." Decades later, when Liam's hair turned gray and his steps slowed, a young volunteer named Rosa joined the center. She noticed how he always wore that same worn gray scarf, even in summer. One day, she asked about it. He told her the story of Elsie, of sandwiches in the cold, of soft words that mended a broken soul. Rosa listened, tears welling up. "She sounds like an angel," she said. "She was," he replied softly. "But more than that, she was human. And that's what made her kindness so powerful." After Liam passed, Rosa continued his work, just as he had continued Elsie's. She, too, walked the streets, her footsteps guided by the same whisper that had carried through generations. The city still hummed with its restless noise, but if one listened closely, really listened, there was something softer beneath it. A whisper. The whisper of a kind heart.